welcome back to Bedtime Stories ASMR. Today we are back supporting our local library with fairy tales that you have never read before. These fairy tales I'm really excited to show you. As I said in my last video like this, you only get to experience the magic of hearing a fairy tale for the first time once. And for a lot of people, a lot of adults, that's something they'll never get again. So today, let's hear those fairy tales for the first time again. Starting off with most of them I don't even recognize. I have never heard of this fairy tale before. Let's get right into it. 6 Soldiers of Fortune. There was once a man who was a jack of all trades. He had served in the war and had been brave and bold, but at the end of it he was sent about his business with 3 farthings and his discharge. "I am not going to stand this," said he. "Wait until I find the right man to help me, and the king shall give me all the treasures of his kingdom before he has done with me." Then, full of wrath, he went into the forest, and he saw a man standing by 6 trees, which he had rooted up as if they had been stalks of corn. And he said to him, "Will you be my man and come along with me?" "All right," answered he. "I must just take this bit of wood home to my father and mother." And taking one of the trees, he bound it round the other 5, and putting the bundle on his shoulder, carried it off. Then soon coming back, he went along with his leader, who said, "2 such as we can stand against the whole world." And when they had gone on a little while, they came to a huntsman who was kneeling on one knee and taking careful aim with his rifle. "Huntsman," said the leader, "what are you aiming at?" 2 miles from here," answered he, "there sits a fly on the bough of an oak tree. I mean to put a bullet into its left eye." "Oh, come along with me," said the leader. 3 of us together can stand against the world." The huntsman was quite willing to go with him, and so they went on until they came to 7 windmills, whose sails were going round briskly. And yet there was no wind blowing from any quarter, and not a leaf stirred. "Well," said the leader, "I cannot think what ails the windmills, turning without wind." And he went on with his followers about 2 miles farther, and then they came to a man sitting up in a tree, holding one nostril and blowing with the other. "Now then," said the leader, "what are you doing up here?" 2 miles from here," answered he, "there are 7 windmills. I'm blowing, and they are going round." "Oh, go with me," cried the leader. 4 of us together can stand against the world." So the blower got down and went with them, and after a time they came to a man standing on one leg, and the other had been taken off and was lying near him. "You seem to have got a handy way of resting yourself," said the leader to him. "I am a runner," answered he, "and in order to keep myself from going too fast, I have taken off a leg, for when I run with both, I go faster than a bird can fly." "Oh, go with me," cried the leader. 5 of us together may well stand against the world." So he went with them all together, and it was not long before they met a man with a little hat on, and he wore it just over one ear. "Manners, manners," said the leader. "With your hat like that you look like a jack-fool." "I dare not put it straight," answered the other. "If I did, there would be such a terrible frost that the very birds would be frozen and fall dead from sky to the ground." "Oh, come with me," said the leader. "We 6 together may well stand against the whole world." So the 6 went on until they came to a town where the king caused it to be made known that whoever would run a race with his daughter and win it might become her husband, but that whoever lost must lose his head in the bargain. And the leader came forward and said one of his men should run for him. Then, said the king, his life too must be put in pledge, and if he fails, his head and yours too must fall. When this was quite settled and agreed upon, the leader called the runner and strapped his second leg onto him. Now look out, said he, and take care that we win. It had been agreed that the one who should bring water first from a far distant brook should be accounted winner. Now the king's daughter and the runner each took a pitcher, and they started both at the same time. But in one moment, when the king's daughter had gone but a very little way, the runner was out of sight, for his running was as if the wind rushed by. In a short time he reached the brook, filled his pitcher full of water, and turned back again. About halfway home, however, he was overcome with weariness. He set down his pitcher and lay down on the ground to sleep. But in order to awaken soon again, by not lying too soft, he had taken a horse's skull which lay near, and placed it under his head for a pillow. In the meanwhile, the king's daughter, who really was a good runner, good enough to beat an ordinary man, had reached the brook and filled her pitcher and was hastening with it back again, when she saw the runner lying asleep. "The day is mine," said she with much joy, and she emptied his pitcher and hastened on. And now all had been lost, but for the huntsman who was standing on the castle wall, and with his keen eyes saw all that happened. "We must not be outdone by the king's daughter," said he, and he loaded his rifle and took so good aim that he shot the horse's skull from under the runner's head without doing him any harm. And the runner woke and jumped up and saw his pitcher standing empty and the king's daughter far on her way home. But, not losing courage, he ran swiftly to the brook, filled it again with water, and for all that, he got home 10 minutes before the king's daughter. "Look you," said he, "this is the first time I have really stretched my legs. Before, it was not worth the name of running." The king was vexed, and his daughter yet more so, that she should be beaten by a discharged common soldier. And they took counsel together how they might rid themselves of him and his companions at the same time. "I have a plan," said the king. "Do not fear, but that we shall be quit of them forever." Then he went out to the men and bade to them to feast and be merry and eat and drink. And he led them into a room with a floor of iron, and the doors were iron. The windows had iron frames and bolts. In the room was a table set out with costly food. "Now go in there and make yourselves comfortable," said the king. And when they had gone in, he had the door locked and bolted. Then he called the cook and told him to make a big fire underneath the room, so that the iron floor of it should be red hot. And the cook did so, and the 6 men began to feel the room growing very warm, by reason, as they thought at first, of the good dinner. But as the heat grew greater and greater, and they found the doors and windows fastened, they began to think it was an evil plan of the king's to suffocate them. "He shall not succeed, however," said the man with the little hat. "I will bring on a frost that shall make the fire feel ashamed of itself and creep out of the way." So he set his hat straight on his head, and immediately there came such a frost that all the heat passed away and the food froze in the dishes. After an hour or 2 had passed, and the king thought they must have all perished in the heat, he opened the door and went to see how they fared. And when the door flew back, there they were, all 6, quite safe and sound. And they said they were quite ready to come out, so that they might warm themselves, for the great cold of that room had caused the food to freeze in the dishes. Full of wrath, the king went out to the cook and scolded him, and asked why he had not done as he was ordered. "It is hot enough there, you may see for yourself," answered the cook. And the king looked and saw an immense fire burning underneath the room of iron, and he began to think that the 6 men were not to be got rid of in that way. And he thought of a new plan by which it might be managed, so he sent for the leader and said to him, "If you will give up your right to my daughter and take gold instead, you may have as much as you'd like." "Certainly, my lord king," answered the man. "Let me have as much gold as my servant can carry, and I give up all claim to your daughter." And the king agreed that he should come again in a fortnight to fetch the gold. The man then called together all the tailors in the kingdom and set them to work to make a sack, and it took them a fortnight. And when it was ready, the strong man who had been found rooting up trees took it on his shoulder and went to the king. "Who is this immense fellow carrying on his shoulder a bundle of stuff as big as a house?" cried the king, terrified to think how much gold he would carry off. And a ton of gold was dragged in by 16 strong men, but he put it all into the sack with one hand, saying, "Why don't you bring some more? This hardly covers the bottom." So the king bade them fetch by degrees the whole of his treasure, and even then the sack was not half full. "Bring more," cried the man. "These few scraps go no way at all." Then at last 7,000 wagons laden with gold, collected through the whole kingdom, were driven up, and he threw them in his sack, oxen and all. "I will not look too closely," said he, "but take what I can get, so long as the sack is full." And when all was put in there was still plenty of room. "I must make an end of this," he said. "If it is not full, it is so much the easier to tie up." And he hoisted it on his back and went off with his comrades. When the king saw all the wealth of his realm carried off by a single man, he was full of wrath, and he bade his cavalry mount their horses, follow after the 6 men, and take the sack away from the strong man. 2 regiments were soon up to them, and called them to consider themselves prisoners, and to deliver up the sack or be cut in pieces. "Prisoners, say you," said the man who could blow. "Suppose you first have a little dance together in the air," and holding one nostril and blowing through the other, he sent the regiments flying head over heels, over the hills and far away. But a sergeant who had 9 wounds and was a brave fellow begged not to be put to so much shame, and the blower let him down easily, so that he came to no harm, and he bade him go to the king and tell him that whatever regiments he liked to send more should be blown away just the same. And the king, when he got the message, said, "Let the fellows be, they have some right on their side." So the 6 comrades carried home their treasure, divided it among them, and lived contented until they died. What a fun little story that was. I love fairy tales with fantastical elements like that. I love how they never explain a thing. They never say how any of them got their powers. They just outline a set of tools and a clever man who used them to their best ability to trick a nasty tyrant. That's the true spirit of a fairy tale. I have marked the stories that are new to me. There are, of course, some average stories in here like Hansel and Gretel, but I'm skipping over those to go to the ones that we've never heard before. If you're liking this video so far, please don't forget to leave a like and a comment on this video. It helps a small channel like this one so much. Thank you very much. Cat and Mouse in Partnership. A cat, having made acquaintance with a mouse, professed such a great love and friendship for her that the mouse at last agreed that they should live and keep house together. "We must make provision for the winter," said the cat, "or we shall suffer hunger, and you, little mouse, must not stir out, or you will be caught in a trap. So they took counsel together and bought a little pot of fat, but they could not tell where to put it for safety. Finally, after long consideration, the cat said there could not be a better place than the church, for nobody would steal there, and they would put it under the altar and not touch it until they were really in want. So this was done, and the little pot placed in safety. But before long, the cat was seized with a great wish to taste it. "Listen to me, little mouse," said he. "I have been asked by my cousin to be the godfather to a little son she has brought into the world. He is white with brown spots, and they want to have the christening today. So let me go to it, and you stay at home and keep house." "Oh yes, certainly," answered the mouse. "Pray go by all means. And when you are feasting on all the good things, think of me. I should so like a drop of the sweet red wine." But there was not a word of truth in all this. The cat had no cousin, and had not been asked to stand godfather. Rather, he went to the church, straight up to the little pot, and licked the fat off the top. Then he took a walk over the roofs of the town, saw his acquaintances, stretched himself in the sun, and licked his whiskers as often as he thought of the little pot of fat. And then, when it was evening, he went home. "Here you are at last," said the mouse. "I expect you have had a merry time." "Oh, pretty well," answered the cat. "And what name did you give the child?" asked the mouse. "Top off," answered the cat dryly. "Top off," cried the mouse. "That is a singular and wonderful name. Is it common in your family?" "What does it matter?" said the cat. "It's not any worse than Crumpicker, like your godchild." A little time after this, the cat was again seized with a longing. "Again I must ask you," he said to the mouse, "to do me a favor and keep house alone for one day. I have been asked a second time to stand godfather, and as the little one has a white ring around its neck, I cannot well refuse." So the kind little mouse consented, and the cat crept along by the town wall until he reached the church, and going straight to the little pot of fat, devoured half of it. "Nothing tastes so well as what one keeps to oneself," said he, feeling quite content with his day's work. When he reached home, the mouse asked what name had been given to the child. "Half gone," said the cat. "Half gone," cried the mouse. "I never heard such a name in my life." Soon after that, the cat's mouth began to water again for the fat. "Good things always come in threes," said he to the little mouse. "Again I have been asked to stand godfather. The little one is quite black with white feet, and not any hair on its body. Such a thing does not happen every day. So you will let me go, won't you?" "Top off, half gone," murmured the mouse. "They are such curious names, I cannot but wonder at them." "That's because you are always sitting at home," said the cat, "in your little gray frock and hairy tail, never seeing the world and fancying all sorts of things." So the little mouse cleaned up the house and set it all in order. Meanwhile, the greedy cat went and made an end of the little pot of fat. "Now that all is finished, one's mind will be easy," said he, and came home in the evening, quite sleek and comfortable. The mouse asked at once what name had been given to the third child. "It won't please you better than the others," answered the cat. "It's called All Gone." "All Gone," cried the mouse. "What an unheard of name. I never heard anything like it. All gone. Whatever can it mean?" And shaking her head, she curled herself round and went to sleep, to sleep, to sleep. After that, the cat did not again ask to stand godfather. When the winter had come and there was nothing more to be had outdoors, the mouse began to think of their store in the church. "Come, cat," said she, "we will fetch our pot of fat. How good it will taste, to be sure." "Of course it will," said the cat, "just as good as if you stuck your tongue out of a window." So they set out, and when they reached the place, they found the pot, but it was standing empty. "Oh, now I know what it all meant," cried the mouse. "Now I see what sort of a partner you've been. Instead of standing godfather, you have devoured it all up. First top off, then half gone, then—" "Will you hold your tongue?" screamed the cat. "Another word, and I devour you too." And the poor little mouse, already having all gone on her tongue, let it slip out. And the cat leapt upon her and made an end of her. And that is the way of the world. Unfortunately, in stories like this, cats are never to be trusted. Nor foxes, for that matter. Alright, let's find another story. What else do I have marked here? The Three Spinsters. All these so far have been stories I haven't even heard before. The Three Spinsters. There once was a girl who was lazy and would not spin, and her mother could not persuade her to do it, do what she would. At last the mother became angry and out of patience, and gave her a good beating, so that she cried out loudly. It happened at that moment the queen was passing by. As she heard the crying, she stopped and, going into the house, asked the mother why she was beating her daughter, so that everyone outside in the streets could hear her cries. The woman was ashamed to tell of her daughter's laziness, so she said, "I cannot stop her from spinning. She is forever at it, and I am poor and cannot furnish her with flax enough." Then the queen answered, "I like nothing better than the sound of the spinning wheel, and always feel happy when I hear its humming. Let me take your daughter with me to the castle, where I have plenty of flax. She shall spin there to her heart's content." The mother was only too glad of the offer, and the queen took the girl with her. When they reached the castle, the queen showed her 3 rooms which were filled with the finest flax, as full as they could hold. "Now you spin me this flax," said she, "and when you can show me it is all done, you shall have my eldest son for husband. You may be poor, but I make nothing of that. Your hard work is dowry enough." The girl was inwardly terrified, for she could not have spun the flax, even if she were to live to be 100 years old, and were to sit spinning every day of her life from morning to evening. When she found herself alone, she began to weep, and sat so for 3 days without beginning. On the 3rd day the queen came, and when she saw that nothing had been done of this spinning, she was much surprised. But the girl excused herself by saying that she had not been able to begin because of the distress she was in at leaving her home and her mother. The excuse contented the queen, who said, however, as she went away, "Tomorrow you must begin to work." When the girl found herself alone again, she could not tell how to help herself or what to do, and in her perplexity she went and gazed out of the window. There she saw 3 women passing by. The first of them had a broad, flat foot. The second had a big underlip that hung down over her chin, and the third had a remarkably broad thumb. They all stopped in front of the window and called out to know what it was that the girl wanted. She told them all her need, and they promised her their help and said, "Then you will invite us to your wedding and not be ashamed of us, and call us your cousins, and let us sit at your table. If you will promise this, we will finish off your flax spinning in a very short time." "With all my heart," answered the girl. "Only come in now and begin at once." Then these same women came in, and she cleared a space in the first room for them to sit and carry on their spinning. The first one drew out the thread and moved the pedal that turned the wheel. The second one moistened the thread. The third twisted it and rapped with her finger on the table, and as often as she rapped, a heap of yarn fell to the ground, and it was most beautifully spun. But the girl hid the three spinsters out of the queen's sight, and only showed her, as often as she came, the heaps of well-spun yarn. And there was no end to the praises she received. When the first room was empty, they went on to the second, and then to the third, so that at last all was finished. Then the three women took their leave, saying to the girl, "Do not forget what you have promised, and it will be all the better for you." So when the girl took the queen and showed her the empty rooms and the great heaps of yarn, the wedding day was at once arranged, and the prince rejoiced that he should have so clever and diligent a wife, and praised her exceedingly. "I have 3 cousins," said the girl. "As they have shown me a great deal of kindness, I would not wish to forget them in my good fortune. May I be allowed to invite them to the wedding and ask them to sit at the table with us?" The queen and the prince said at once, "There is no reason against it." So when the feast began, in came the 3 spinsters in a strange guise, and the bride said, "Dear cousins, you are welcome." "Oh," said the bridegroom, "why do you have such dreadfully ugly relations?" And then he went up to the first spinster and said, "How is it that you have such a broad flat foot?" "With treading," answered she, "with treading." Then he went up to the second and said, "How is it that you have such a great hanging lip?" "With licking," answered she, "with licking." Then he asked the third, "How is it that you have such a broad thumb?" "With twisting thread," answered she, "with twisting thread." Then the prince said that from that time forward his beautiful bride should never touch a spinning wheel again, for he secretly feared that she would one day look like her ugly cousins, and so she escaped that tiresome flax spinning. That's a nice story. In the beginning, it reminded me of Rumpelstiltskin. I like that the 3 cousins were so clever and they did her a good deed at the end by letting her never